Rangers here from Western North Dakota. The men and women in blue are coming at you straight off the cuff this morning. Good morning, Lieutenant Hanel.
Hey, good morning, Lieutenant Klauser. How you doing?
I am good. It has been a couple months since we have been in the studio here together.
Yeah, that's it. I don't want to make the excuses again, but it got busy over the summer. You blinked and here it's fall.
Yeah, it really was a little bit of a stretch the last couple months getting some of our folks back in-house after several of them were gone for the summer, reacclimated, staffing, scheduling, and...
Babies.
Yeah, babies. But
a lot out on baby leave.
But we got a nice lineup we've talked about for our viewers coming up here in the next couple months. Today, I think, is a great warm-up from maybe a slight break on our end. And I look forward to giving an introduction to her here just shortly.
Right. Yep. I'm excited because this is kind of my wheelhouse. So it's one of my peeps that we get to interview today. Oversee dispatch. So we're going to have one of our dispatcher twos. So kind of like the second in command back there at the helm in dispatch. So yeah, we're excited to have her on. Yeah.
One of our senior angels of the airwaves. And
there you go.
I think you listeners are going to really enjoy hearing a little bit of that perspective today and some context to how that plays into the Dickinson Police Department and the importance of what we're doing for you guys, trying to do for you guys anyways, on a day-to-day. But before we get down and dirty with that conversation, and let's talk a little bit maybe about what's been going on in the community. Mikey, getting everybody up to speed on a few different things there. I think a big one that hits me as we start the conversation is city admin had a lockdown here not too long ago where we had to send out a press release, and there was a citywide alert related to that. The listeners want to hear a little bit more from us on that.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of one of those types of calls that we hear and read about in different areas across the nation, except for ours. We never think something like that would happen here, but this one got scarily close to something bad having gone down. So basically just amounted to an individual is due for court, some stuff going on in his life or despondent that's for some reason, and basically through the back channels we learned that there was actually a threat lodged against him wanting to bring a gun into municipal court on that Thursday morning. And so we kind of worked it a little bit from there. And
we got some pending court proceedings with that right now, but the arrest was effected, and you did a nice job on the press release. Really encourage listeners who want to know some of the details surrounding that. Refer to Mikey's press release on our Facebook to get you up to speed or to see some of the fine details of that. But it was a scary thing for some of the city employees, and City Administrator Dossinger, which that'll tee me up into the next topic here. They took some good action down there, very cognizant of safety, and had the alert sent and things locked down. And our hats off to our patrol division that day. They were Johnny on the spot with locating the individual in question, traffic stop, making sure everything was safe in a timely manner.
Yeah, I would say so. And ultimately, yeah, they did procure a gun off that traffic stop. It was, I believe, in a backpack or something. And
yes.
So that's obviously going to be introduced into court and through the court proceedings. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that would not have, I guess that stop wouldn't have been made possible without that tip from the public. So there was a tip that came initially to our BCI office. BCI got a hold of us. So the importance of, in this day and age, seeing something, or if you see something, say something. That's definitely what very possibly could have prevented a very serious incident from unfolding here.
Yeah, and we of course aren't familiar with every single person in our community, but for those of you out there, you have your friends, and you have baseline behaviors, and you have norms of behavior, and if you have friends that are acting outside that, or acquaintances that are acting outside that, and it's alarming, and you're seeing things or hearing things that are a little setting you back a little bit, they're probably worth us knowing. And so, yeah, just what Mikey had said, you see something, say something. It's cliche and it's all over the billboards, but it is true.
Very, very much so. Yeah.
So coming back around, we talked City Administrator Dossinger. There's some changes coming up on the front there for our listeners. Dusty Dossinger here on last Friday. It was released in the paper as well. Signed a contract for City Administrator position, vacating his sitting role as the Chief of Police for the Dickinson Police Department. So that'll be a pivot, I'm sure, for the city here coming up. and we don't have much information on that other than we know that there's going to be some conversation surrounding it, and I don't know if you can add anything to that, Mike.
Yeah, well, just in chief's service here. I mean, 11, 12, almost going on 12 years here for chief of police. So he's looking back at what he's been able to accomplish for our department. We're obviously gonna miss him, but we know he's gonna excel in that position of city administrator. So not only just being able to keep us going here at the PD, but now under the whole city umbrella, we're fortunate to have that local talent here.
Yeah, I think there's a punchline for all of us up here. We need him to do well. Yep. For the rest of us to do well, and so our support and encouragement in that way for you, former Chief Dossinger, current City Administrator Dossinger. Here's our shout out to you.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So in touching base with Cap Ciani this morning, he gave me some tips on the last month, and arrests were up, continuing to be up. He said some of our traffic was down, but arrests were up for the month. Pair that with some welfare checks continue to hold high for us. Mental health, are you seeing anything on the press end of it there? Yeah, we could talk about it all from PIO stuff, Mikey. Yeah,
just basically off those numbers, you can just definitely tell it's in the air that people are still just trying to trudge forward. There were a lot of mental health issues related calls that we're dealing with. Obviously, the incident up at City Hall here that we just talked about, and just kind of par for the course. Just the limits that people are being stretched to nowadays, and obviously we want to encourage those people in those situations to reach out and get help before it is too late. There is hope out there. So and obviously our services are not precluded from that. So if does need law enforcement intervention, obviously give us a call. That's what we want to do.
It seems like a lot of people are bringing up to us and mentioning about new faces that they're seeing in town, and a lot of these folks that we're dealing with on the welfare checks. It seems like there may be individuals we haven't encountered in the past, and coming into their own crisis of unique nature, whatever's going on in their life, and that just goes on to continue to beat the drum with. Sometimes people assume when they go by these individuals or when they're seeing certain things, law enforcement maybe has already been contacted, or, we're already in the loop, or we're on top of that. And maybe that's because of some of the good work that we do up here that people recognize us for. But that, again, is a testament. Hey, if you're seeing suspicious behavior or you're concerned for somebody's well-being, don't hesitate to call the non-emergency number in the book there, 701-456-7762, and get a patrol officer over there to get some eyes on it, and just get a matter of record, I guess, if nothing else.
And then nationally is the new number rolled out, so that's 211 was the statewide mental health.
Still in use.
Still in use. Yep. 211 still in use. So obviously encourage folks to use that if they're in crisis, or if they need some advice how to deal with a family member that's in crisis. That we obviously highly encourage to reach out to those resources.
211 state, and is it 988?
988
for the national hotline. So 211 state, either one will work. Whatever one you can remember out of that, and but definitely worthwhile for sharing to those that may be in a time of crisis and time of need. Some other, I think, noteworthy maybe arrests since the last time we were together. We had a big arrest here locally, had a string of burglaries. An individual by the name of Jason Schultz just recently was instructed by investigators, pled to 3 different burglaries that we had in the community. Worth on that. Again, oftentimes these things are posted on our Facebook page, so follow the Facebook page here that Mikey does a great job with for the Dickinson Police Department. Listeners, if you don't right now. Another one is currently been charged out and in pending criminal proceedings, and that is going to be on a Robin Glear, and there was an embezzlement allegations of upward $900,000 plus embezzled from a loaf and jug store. So we have that one. And patrol came across one interesting about a month ago during nights. An individual by the name of Toby White from Minnesota was coming through the area here, and we had some stolen vehicles involved and a van. Try to make the long story short, good police work by the officers on their response. Came across Mr. White, and he was in possession of a stolen van and a trailer out of the Minnesota area. There's some other smaller things in there. but just some specific highlights for you guys out there wondering what's going on. You know, what do you guys have happening? We're not hearing anything. Well, there you go. We got a few things there that we can say out loud. And maybe the highlight here. This is a good one. Yeah. So we have a case that we are sitting on. We're very close to. We're going to talk about this probably in the next podcast. But we have a 2016 case, felony, violent crime, that is now come full circle. And we have some new developments through DNA and technology that we are just on the cusp of getting a judge's signature on a warrant. And so I'm going to leave you with that, and we're going to hopefully talk about that.
Little teaser there.
Yeah, a little teaser, but the next recording, hopefully we'll get you guys involved on that. You're going to love to hear that one. Some of you guys are going to remember it probably because it was publicized, and that was back in the day, actually, when Sergeant Hanno was his crew working that night.
Yep. Yeah,
and
remember vividly.
Yeah. We had some hounds, some bloodhounds, tracking hounds that were called into town on this night for this case, and there was a lot of time and effort put into it, and so it's we'll tell you more about it here in the next recording, but it's a pretty cool thing. Yep,
all that forensic stuff. You know, you watch TV and stuff, and I think a lot of people have the misnomer that that's we're doing that all the time, and very seldom. I shouldn't say very seldom, but it doesn't happen that often. Where it falls
stars align.
Yes, the stars align. You get the profiles to match up just perfect. So just like an episode off of TV, this is gonna be a good one to debrief here when we get to that.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. And so, all right, anything else you can think of maybe that's...
Yeah, I'm trying to think what we got teed up for the fall here.
We just got done with the Fall Festival here over the weekend. There was a couple thousand in attendance right there. We had a shout out from the organization that puts that on, thanking the PD for that, and the first responders, fire department, sheriff's department that was there. A couple thousand people though. So
yeah, it was a good turnout.
That's pretty good. And yeah, other fall things maybe that are coming up. I would just say stay posted with our social media accounts. You guys share those, and Mike's got a highlight. I'm going to give him a prop, I think, on this one, that here in the last, we just surpassed, it was about 14,000 followers.
Just hit the 14,000 mark.
Just right at the 14,000 followers, and this podcast has been a big part of pushing that number up higher, and we're very excited about that. And that's largely a hats off to Lieutenant Handel and his creativity. And
it's actually our viewers out there. That's you guys are liking us and following us and giving us tips what you want to see and what you want to hear. So
yeah, well, and most of that is you guys are liking what you're seeing. So there's some probably that don't like what they're seeing, and they're following. I get that.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, we understand that, but. So it goes, but I think without further ado, maybe we'll kick it over to our guest here. I got something I'd like to set the tone though with this out loud here, okay, for our listeners. So it's a little something. I'm going to try to keep my mic up here a little bit closer and such. And so we'll get her brain thinking a little bit here, okay? It's Dear Lord, help keep me safe, those who depend on me. Give me healthy ears, for they are my link with those who need me. Keep my mind sharp and alert, and my fingers quick and nimble. Grant me the ability to do 10 things at once, and do them all equally well. Bless me with patience, Lord. Give me the nerves of steel, and do not give way to panic. Help me to remember that I make a difference, however small it may seem, some days, and that I matter. I am a dispatcher. Lord, grant me peace. Tenille, Weyer. What do you think about those words?
Amen.
Yeah. Right? I think I thought I would bring that in for those that are hearing this to set the stage for what we're talking about today. And so, dispatcher's prayer.
Yeah, I love that. It just really puts into very simple terms feelings that we go through every single day when we sit in that chair and try to help the community.
Yeah. And the voice that you guys are hearing, if you close your eyes and you think about, instances maybe where you have called the police department here in the past, Tenille is very likely somebody that you have spoke to. She is, in a non-offensive way, an old dog here.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
An old dog here. And total time with the police department?
I think we're right at 15 years.
15. Now, you had a short pivot, motherhood and some different things, took you a different direction.
Yeah, I thought I needed, the normal 8 to 5, let's be, calm, and I missed dispatching every single day that I was gone.
You can take the dog out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of the dog.
I did. I just wanted, I missed making a difference. I missed knowing that every day that I came to work, whether it be small or big, that what I was doing was important.
Yeah. And you are Dickinson born and raised. If I get some of this wrong, help me out. I want to.
So I was actually born in Billings. My parents are originally from this area. We moved away for a short few years throughout like elementary and middle school. I came back in high school, and I've been back ever since.
Okay. So midget grad?
Yeah.
Midget graduate. Got it. And so this whole thing, thinking about, dispatchers and our 911, when did it cross your radar? Like when did this whole field and this whole thing, spark and start that little blurb on Tenille's radar?
I mean, honestly, it was just going through life, figuring out what I was going to do. I'd tried a couple of different jobs, and when this one came open, I was like, oh, I think that would be great. I think that would be really fun. And I was always, I think growing up, we always watched 911 shows or, unsolved mysteries. You get that whole, hey, I'm really into this, Law and Order. Let's give it a shot. And it was perfect timing, and where I was at in my life, I just needed to try something different, and I gave it a shot.
Yeah. And it was the right shot?
Yeah. It changed my life.
Sure. What can you talk us through that tale a little bit from the beginning? I mean, what did you expect when you came into the door here, thinking, because there's been some people that have applied for our communication specialist job that sometimes I think that like they have not read the job description. They think they're
For sure.
They think they're going to be a telemarketer or something.
Yeah. You just think answering phones, maybe, just doing what you're doing, but you don't. And they talk about multitasking. They talk about like you're going to be doing more than one thing at a time. And like you get through that first interview, and then when they call you back in for the second, they give you the opportunity to come into the center, and you walk in, and most times there's phones ringing and radios happening and people in and out, and you're like, it's just like a deer in the headlights. Or what did I get myself into? How am I going to juggle all of this? Because it's not like your normal multitasking where you're just handling, it's just this chaotic, beautiful event that happens where things just fall into place. It's a controlled chaos.
Chaos.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going up to it, having the interview, I was excited. I presented myself. Obviously, they called me back. And then they brought me in the center, and I just sat there, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm not for sure if, like, this is so much more than I ever anticipated. And back then it was, the handheld phones that people were holding with their shoulders, and you're typing, and you've got these papers in front of you, you're writing, they're punching cards. Like, there's so many things that were happening that we now don't have to do because of technology, but it's just so many things. So it was very intimidating, and going through the training process was really intense, but I'm glad I stuck it out and made it.
We've shared with some of our other guests kind of maybe like a typical day, on a typical shift. So to get you kind of frame thinking about that. So like, as a dispatcher thinking about today, can you paint out to a listener for us, like what does that look like just on an average day? What could it look like? There's so many unknowns in there, but thinking about you come in at 7:00 and you hit the ground, and then between that 7 and that 7 p.m., like what could a day look like for a dispatcher?
I mean, honestly, it differs. I mean, this weekend we had a extremely busy weekend where you're looking at 115 calls for service, and that's not even including all of the phone calls that are coming in that don't result in an actual call for service that you're entering in. Like at the end of the day, we were spent. We had been on the phone all day long. It was nonstop. You're hey, give me 1 minute so I can step away for a second, but it's just go every single day. And then on Sunday, you have that day where it's just not quite as many. You have like 60 calls for service where you do have that break time in between, and you're trying to get caught up with your trainings and everything else that's on your plate. But it just depends on the day.
In terms of, so you mentioned call for service. What does that all entail? What's a call for service?
A call for service would be any call that comes in that we're going to be dispatching out or personally handle within dispatch to officers, sheriff's department, fire department, ambulances. Every incident that happens gets what's called a call for service, and it's a specific number. We restart them every year, and it goes just from 1 to however many we have for the year.
And typical Friday night, how many CFSs do you think is generated between all those agencies?
This was just day shift, and we were, 120. So their night, they said, wasn't quite as busy, but you can get anywhere from 50 to 100. It just depends. Some nights can be pretty crazy, and you've got calls stacked. You're letting everybody know other people are coming in to help. It's just... and other nights you can sit there and just be doing nothing and have 10 calls for service. It really, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I think if you go back and you look at all the behind the scenes, you can try to, but we've even talked about you can't predict how to even staff for, hey, every Friday night we've got really busy stuff happening, because it's not the case. So
full moons.
Yeah.
That's how we predict.
Absolutely.
Full moons.
Yeah.
Yes, so moved. That is,
It is so true. People, they talk about it, you joke about it, but it's true.
we witness it. You want proof, you just come up here to the Dickinson Police Department, you sit in dispatch, follow our officers. The full moon cycle is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gravitational pulls and whatever else. Mike, maybe how many, do you remember on our annual report last year, what were we sitting on for calls for service for the year? You know that number offhand?
I want to say 27, north of 27,000. I'm guessing, but that's obviously us, Sheriff's Department. That's the entire
It's a
pot.
running tally, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of when you really look at the number, when you see it down there, like, it's a good number for people to hear. Like, holy cow, it's a significant.
And how many people are usually helping you in the center? How
We
many?
have a minimum of 2. Hopefully, we'll get full staffed soon and get some people in the chairs. But minimum 2. You're never by yourself. You always have somebody there in with you. We like to have 3, both day and night. And sometimes on day shift, when we have full staff, we're at 4 in the dispatch center, and that enables us to have time to do that. Administrative kind of stuff, working through things, getting trainings done, starting, like we talked about, QA, quality assurance, getting those people that can come off of the floor. In a perfect world, we're able to have that on day shift, so we can have 4 and 3.
And so when we're full staff, how many dispatchers do we have at full staff right now?
I think we have 15 openings, and we currently, our 12 are filled?
Hiring for 2 right now. I think
2.
one's in background, and then so we just got one more. Almost there.
Yeah, getting there.
Yeah.
And who does our center serve? I think some people just think Dickinson alone, but
No, we service Stark County, the entirety of it, all fire, EMS, law enforcement, rescue squads, everything in Stark County we're servicing. So I would think it's 2 law enforcement agencies, Stark County Sheriff's Department, Dickinson Police Department, and then you have your city fire, rural fire, and then you start getting out into Gladstone Fire, Taylor Fire, Richardson Fire, South Hart, and then Belfield Fire, and then Belfield has their ambulance squad, Richardson has an ambulance squad, and then there's some little areas, on the outskirts of the county that we're co-oping with state radio when it comes to different services, but all within Stark County.
I think that's, I asked that question in tee up because we are the mothership of emergency communication up here. And so the importance of what these people are doing in the seats in there and how that impacts us here for the greater good of the community. I hope you guys, listeners, it's a great job. It's a great job, and we need more good people wanting to do it. And that's part of today with the highlight with you.
Yes, absolutely. Get people interested. Let them see kind of behind the scenes so they know what the job's about a little bit and how much it can mean to you.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think some of the good qualities are that if somebody is out there listening, if they can look inwards towards themselves to see if they got this stuff? What's the stuff you need to be a good dispatcher?
Honestly, I think active listening is one of the best qualities of a dispatcher, to be able to just kind of listen to what's going on, interpret from tone and what's happening, and putting that into your work. Empathy, being able to empathize and sympathize with the people that are calling in and making sure they feel valid, and knowing that you're caring and willing to take care of them in their time of need, no matter how big or small. obviously multitasking, I say it, but I kind of, everyone thinks they can multitask. It's just a different time. Somebody told me one time that it's actually not multitasking that we do, it's switch tasking, that you're doing these different things at a simultaneous time rather than just, so it's very different because even when you're on the phone, you're listening to the radio, you're talking on the radio, you've got people coming in, you're shuffling things. So, and you obviously have 8 screens in front of you, so you're watching all those different things, trying to get locations. It can definitely get, it's multitasking on steroids. But listening is very important, to be able to listen to understand rather than listen to respond. Sometimes you get more from the caller just by saying hello and being quiet for a minute and letting them just say what they need to say and documenting it. And then once they stop, you can get through the questions that you still need to get through.
Yeah, it is a beautiful art when it's going well. And, you know, I had a long time in my career, Mike, where in investigations getting called out, Tenille calling me out at night saying, hey, whatever, we got burglaries, we got a stabbing, we got a shooting coming out. And I always probably had one of the better CC investigators in general with hearing some of this stuff right out of the gates. Because the first thing when Tenille would call me and she'd say, hey, we need you out here, you got to come out. Like, okay, Tenille, play the 911 back for me. I want to hear how this thing goes from the beginning. And what she just said there, when Tenille's in her wheelhouse, when a dispatcher is on point and doing a good job, it is pivotal in the success of the follow-up portions of the investigation and, you know, coming to a good conclusion. The questions that are asked or just the silence that's used, what you just talked about right there, the ability for you guys to hear what's being said or maybe what they're trying to say and they can't say it, the undertone and the backdrop. I don't think some of that stuff sometimes is highlighted enough. Like I try to share it with you guys out loud because I've seen it. Comments, questions, and when you're on game or on point, it is just so crucial to having a positive outcome from the investigation side. And but that's my bias on that end of it. There's,
I mean, and sometimes it's just an intuition thing. Like you talk to the officer and you're like, I know this sounds crazy, but something does not sound right. Like you get a 911 hang up, you call them back and they're like, oh, everything's fine, but there's just a tone. There's something you hear in the background. There's something that you're just picking up on, and you have to trust. And there's that level between us and our officers where you can say, hey, like I really need you to follow up on this. I need you to take this seriously and really something's not right here. And I mean, sometimes it may be nothing, but every now and then you get that call where you're like, I made the right call. This person was in distress and they weren't able to communicate with us, and we sent somebody and they got the help that they needed.
Yeah. And the impacts of that all on that initial response, maybe Mike, the impact, the priming that you guys have on those officers when you're regurgitating that information and you're hearing it in, and then how is it coming out, right? And making sure you guys are keeping both feet on the ground, not panic stricken, because if there's our officers know and they can tell if
get the old crap voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And it's so you don't even know that you're doing it, but I think that the officers that you work with, they are so familiar with your voice and what you sound like in a normal everyday circumstances that they even notice when, oh my gosh, she is serious. Like this is something that it kind of gives you that jolt, is how it's been described to me, where they knew that I was panicking and I was trying very hard not to, and I just needed them to get there.
Yeah, that's So talk a little, how did the career progress for you, Tenille, as it's went along a little bit, starting out and moving up until current day? How's it been for you?
I mean, honestly, it's, starting out, I don't think that anyone, one of my previous supervisors told me that there are some people that it just gets into your blood and and you're hooked instantly. And that's kind of how it felt for me. As soon as I sat in the chair and I started doing the job, I just knew that it was something that really, really I held dear in my heart. I started out, it was very fun. Obviously, you're getting to know all these officers. You're seeing a world that you've never, you see, and sometimes you're almost afraid of police officers. You're like, oh, I don't want to deal with them. You only have, experiences that frighten you. But when you get in there and you start to get to know them, and you become such a deep family, and that is something that has been pivotal in even me wanting to come back here, was missing that link with everybody. And you watch everybody, like you was saying earlier, have babies, get married, have families. I mean, you just become part of this team that ultimately ends up being your family, and you love every single person that you work with. And it makes it more important for you to do your job well, to make sure that they get to go home safe, and it becomes important to you. But I think I got hired in July of 2004.
How many dispatchers at that time did we have? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, was it like 6 or 7, I think? And it was very intimidating, because when I came out of training, there was the hours of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. You were by yourself in the center, and that was just one of the most terrifying things in the world. I remember being so scared, and obviously we don't do that now, but it honestly, it helped you become to trust your instincts, to trust that you knew what you were doing. I think even though we don't do it now, I do believe that there was some benefit of it, because you just learned to rely on your skills and knowledge and trust yourself.
What was a specific fear of that? Like what scared you most at 3 to 7? What was I pray to God that this does not happen?
I mean, anything. You didn't want anything big to happen, because normally, you would have, because your backup, if you have to do anything, is like, hey, officers, but if we get busy and things are happening, nobody's in the office with you. You are in there by yourself, and you're answering phones, and you're juggling this, and you're putting people on hold, and things are still ringing, and it's just, so even the littlest thing, even one car accident could just cause chaos in there, because you have so many different things. And back then it was pushing buttons, and there was definitely different things that made it a little more difficult to dispatch. And if you're in there by yourself, we had paper logs. The police department log was this big huge notebook that we had in front of us, and we'd write the names of the officers and be jotting down the time and what they said. We also had a long clipboard that was the sheriff's department radio log. So you've got these 2 pads in front of you, and you're juggling between them, trying to do everything. And it was just intimidating. It was very frightening.
and then logging on, seeing how did you guys do that, like the times and stuff.
So
like
we
that.
had, it was, it's so funny, because now you hear people say that have been here for many years, start me a card, punch me a card. We would, when we got the call for service, we had these little blue calls for service, and we would punch them in like an old time punch, like the ka-tunk. And we would punch it when we got it. We would punch it when they were en route. We'd punch it when they were on scene, and then we would punch it when they were done. We'd put all the information on there, and we had a little file of facts that was sitting on a shelf, and then the shift commander at the end of the night would come rifle through and make sure and see what needed reports and what didn't, and it was a very different time.
It seems like forever and a day ago, but I mean, yeah, I remember that so vividly, like having to that stack of blue cards you had to shuffle through.
Absolutely, everyone had paper logs. Even the ambulance, we had certain little notepads that they delivered to us every month, and we would write everything out and put them in a file and deliver it to them.
God, we just sound like old people.
I know.
This is just crazy.
It's definitely aging us.
You try to you share some of these things with our new dispatchers coming on to give them some perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost want to say, like, just be thankful, because we do have so much technology and so many cool things now that just make it much easier to accomplish the tasks that we need to do.
Can you tell some of our listeners maybe what are some of those cool things now? Mike, this is, again, both of you guys are wheelhouse. What are some of these cool things that technology is providing us currently for our community, service-wise? And
I mean, I think one of the coolest things that we've got going on right now is RapidSOS, where the technology within that is growing and growing, and it seems that every quarter, every month, that there's something new that's coming out within this program that's making the enhanced 911 even better, faster. I mean, Mike was in dispatch the other day, and like we're getting a notification on RapidSOS 2 seconds before we get that actual ringing of the 911 line. So I mean, they're picking things up even before our systems and the locations on them are instantaneous. Like you've got a very good, solid location. And what's cool about RapidSOS is even after you disconnect, it kind of shows, it follows you for a little bit so we can see where you're at or if you're moving.
Is that a computer program, Mike? Can you highlight it all?
Yeah, so it's like a web-based company that's out there that's free for all PSAPs, our communication centers. It's funded by donations and whatnot. So a lot of agencies have been signing up for this service, and it's just an extra browser window that we have up that kind of augments are, you were talking about enhanced 911.
Yeah.
We'll probably have you unpack that in a second here,
All
exactly
right.
what that is. But and then Tenille was mentioning all these other services that are coming online with RapidSOS that's partnering with them. So an example would be like OnStar. So if you have an OnStar subscription, you get in a car crash, right? It sends the notification to the OnStar people. What RapidSOS does is it basically kind of eliminates the middleman. So instead of OnStar agents having to call us, we get that notification the second the
like
airbag's
an accident has been detected.
Have you seen that yet? Actually, I'm kind of curious.
Not on Rapid. I have not seen it yet. So hopefully, that's going to be amazing. Things to come.
Yep. And then you mentioned like location data. How?
They also have like some of the smartphones where you can enter in your medical information, like if you're diabetic or have seizures, any your emergency contacts. If that stuff is entered into your phone and that is the phone that is used to call on RapidSOS, that displays on our screen for us, so we know if
So
you
is that like the medical ID here on my phone? Is that what we're talking
absolutely,
about?
for
Like
sure.
in there, you got your-
Yeah. If you filled out that information will display on the screen for us to view when you call 911.
That's amazing.
That'd be good. PSA, I suppose, for any family members that have elderly family members, get their phones and put their medical information in there. That way
Yes.
it pops
Because
up.
somebody, sometimes you have the elderly that fall or, are unconscious. They're not able to tell us what is happening. But if you have that in their phone and we can see that they have, a pacemaker or are diabetic, that's something that we can give our responders that can be life-saving.
Yep.
Yeah, that's now I know as a back to the career a little bit here.
Yeah.
So we've built a long time. Our numbers have overall went up. We built some positions in, and now you currently sit in a senior dispatch role, right?
Yes.
And so we brought those on board here several years ago now.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple years since.
And so how is the makeup change within dispatch on that from just everybody's a dispatcher, one supervisor? Now we have some senior dispatchers in there. How does that play into the equation?
I think what's nice is within your career, normally, like when we started before, there was dispatchers and then there was our supervisor. There was no, you wanted to have goals, you wanted to be better, but what steps could I take to make that happen? And now we're building that structure within our division to where you have goals to attain. You can, hopefully we get that senior dispatcher, and then we have the dispatcher 2, and then the supervisor position. If you want to advance your career, you have those steps that you can take now to encourage yourself to do that, because we do have these opportunities now.
Yeah, and pardon me for misspeaking on the title of it. See, dispatcher 2.
Yeah, dispatcher 2.
And, but she's one of our senior ones again, so she's been here so long that, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, I was like, watch how you're wording that.
There's a few of us who can speak in a language that maybe some of our other folks, they don't understand just yet. So
Yeah,
it's kind
absolutely.
of special that way.
But I think that when I started, obviously it meant the world to me. And, you dare to dream that someday you could run a center or be in charge of something or be molding the new dispatchers that are coming through. And that's something that's important to me. When it comes to the dispatcher 2 position, is you get to train, and we're working on and developing. It's ever developing. It's always evolving in our training program, trying to make it better, trying to streamline things, and just to be able to instill the passion that I feel and the importance that this job means to me into these new people, so that they know that they make a difference.
Actually, maybe jump into that a little bit more. What does our training program look like? How long is it? So if somebody does want to become a dispatcher, what does that path look like for us?
Yeah, so right now we've kind of structured it a little bit. You've got 12 weeks of in-person with your trainer training when they're on the floor with you. The first week or 2 of that, you have your dispatcher, basic dispatcher course that we're doing right now through APCO. That will take like a week. It's normally online based. And then you get on the floor and you start out, there's different parts where you can start out with radio and phones and learning those things, but 12 weeks with your trainer. And then we've just started a new where you transition into, your trainer leaves you and you become a third person dispatcher, to where you're always a third person. So you're never in there alone. You're not, sometimes you have 2 in there when somebody takes their breaks, but you get those 6 weeks of third person dispatching before you actually go into a full dispatcher role. So
And then there's one other, the EMD portion of it. Do you want to touch on EMD? What that's all about?
I mean, it's changing right now. We have our emergency medical, which is something that not all centers do, but we actually can give some medical direction to callers when they call 911 prior to EMS, law enforcement, or fire arrival, just to get things moving along in that medical process. Nothing too in depth. It's not like we're there on the scene with them, but just to help out until the professionals can get there. And we have that course. It's changing a little bit now. We used to have a program within our state where we went to training for 2-3 days to get certified, because you're not able to take or give medical advice over any call until you have that certification. But we're changing to our Intellicomm system, which is coming up, and that will be an entirely different training. And I think that's a week-long virtual online course that we'll get certified in to be able to operate that system.
It may be actually a good segue too, because I do have Intellicomm as a bullet point here.
See, I was just going to say.
Yeah,
smooth flow.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about Intellicomm?
I actually was able, we'll talk about California, I'm sure, as well, but when I went to Anaheim and I was able to see a live demo of Intellicomm, unfortunately, it wasn't a live demo that incorporated with our CAD program, so obviously it's going to be a little different when we actually get into doing it, but it's basically a guide card on your computer where you have a basis of questions that you can ask, question answers, and it directs the call taker to where this call is going to go and at what point you would dispatch. I think it's streamlining everything. It's going to be very easy to for quality assurance, because we're going to have those direct questions. Are they asking them? Are they answering them? But it also looks like it's pretty smooth, and you can skip through things if you're not getting that answer or they don't know that answer. It's just an online guide card system, which is now we have kind of a flip book with some question answers, but this seems to be more technology based and getting those questions more streamlined.
And that ranges from CPR instructions. So is the patient breathing, yes or no? They click yes.
Yes.
Then it just goes through
and
there.
Breathing, conscious, you're going through. You get anything from headaches to childbirth,
I know that some people just chiming in from, again, this is your guys' wheelhouse, they always get really critical on, technology and the way things used to be and stuff. But when I hear this stuff from, Mike and Tenille highlighting in there, it really, the essence of this is trying to free up bandwidth so that we're maximizing good decision-making behind the console, right, for those that we're trying to respond to and serve. So we're trying to remove as much of the human error, human factor end of it and such. So, there's, like you said, there's a lot of good things here, because, again, you get some that are like, I do all this stuff for the money, why we're spending money on this. It's like, well, if the money can minimize one decision that can save one life, then it's probably all worth it.
Absolutely.
Too cliche, but.
And how has that, so when you first started the paper stuff, to maybe make a mention of what CAD is and stuff like that, how has that improved your ability to switch task?
I'm a huge fan of our CAD program. It handles everything so well, and it's a command. You type in scene and it scenes the officers. So it's very one word command line driven. It makes everything that you're doing, everything that the officers are saying specifically has something that we would do in correlation to that. So rather than them calling in, me grabbing the log, writing the time, writing what they're saying, writing on the card, taking a phone call and you're writing in your little notebook of what the caller all said and then inputting that into the computer and adding all this stuff in. So there was like 20 steps to taking one phone call and taking that radio traffic, to whereas now everything is right at my fingertips. I can take that phone call and be entering a call, and I can switch over to another command line and take that officer's traffic, and everything just flows. It makes it so much easier to be really good at your job if you're using the equipment and the technology that we have in the best way that you can. It's flawless. It's so good.
You don't miss the punch?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't. Just maybe the sound. But I am a huge fan of the systems that we've changed to, and I love how fast it makes everything. You're even getting those things back to the officers in a more quick manner, which ultimately can mean officer safety.
Do you have several heartfelt, ones that are near and dear to your heart over your time, Tenille, stories, and as a call taker that you just, some of these things, we always talk about wellness, mental health, not living with things, and we got to move on, but we all know that there are these ones that we live with that are always there, etched in us over the course of your career. Do you have some that you can share?
Honestly, I think one of the hardest calls I've ever took, and it stayed with me forever. And I think that also is part of the reason why I am so excited about the new technology and how fast things can come to us. I had an incident where it was a hunting accident where a child passed, and it happened to be a family friend. It happened to be someone that my child had grown up with. And it was so close to home, and it was so difficult. Things were failing. They didn't quite know where they were at. Obviously it just was very difficult. And if we would have had that, RapidSOS or something that just gave me the location immediately, it may not have made a difference in the end of the call, but it would have helped with not having to wait so long for help to get to you to help you handle this situation. I think that's one of the ones that I don't know. I won't ever forget that call.
Sure.
Going into it, I think sometimes when you get those calls where things are involved with officers, those scary type situations, you keep those with you, and it helps you remind you why you're doing what you're doing and trying to make their job as easy, practicing de-escalation, trying to make sure that we're doing our best to not send you into an unsafe scene, and realizing that the questions that we ask do make a difference so that you guys can be safe as well. I try not to hold on too many, and I think when you were talking about it earlier, it is true. When you walk out the door, it's not an easy task to do, but sometimes it's essential for you to just kind of let it go and know that you did the best that you could.
We were sharing some stories here earlier, and you were on the night we had our horrific loss of life with our DSU softball players back in 2010. Mike, is that right?
9.
2009. Yeah, I wasn't working the night of the initial phone calls. I came in the next morning, got briefed on everything, and worked through when we discovered what had tragically happened to them.
When the national media started to roll in.
Yes.
Trucks were
They
out
had
in
the
front.
conference room, and everybody was kind of handling the media, and it was a very
another example. Had we had RapidSOS back then, we'd have probably known exactly where they were.
Absolutely, because I think we got a couple of phone calls where we knew something was happening, but we just didn't know where they were at, and it was just unfortunate and tragic. And then to have to watch those notifications made, see those families come in, and just feeling how tragic that is. I mean, you just never know when it's going to happen, and it's very sad and difficult.
That actually we were talking about enhanced 911 earlier, but how does 911 plotting, locations like that work, phase 1, phase 2 type stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, forgive me, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm learning. This is something I very much am interested in. But, phase 1, generally when you guys call, or the public calls in, you get a tower location. So it's kind of an area. It's the closest tower that this call had bounced off of to come to us. It takes a little while, and you end up getting phase 2. The longer you're on that phone call with somebody, when you first get a location, you may get kind of a bubble on the map about this big, so somewhere in this vicinity is where this person is. But the longer you stay on, sometimes that can narrow down, and you get a more complete direct location of that person. And that's what I was saying with RapidSOS. I mean, it's this small right when you get it, rather than having that large degree of radius to come into.
Yeah, because I believe it's actually using the GPS within the phone, which phase 2 would just be the triangulation. So you have 3 separate tower sites to narrow it down, which I think in the case of the DSU students, we never did get phase 2. So that's why. That's why
I think it was just a
precise
tower location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, that's the GPS. That's the things that, we use when we're working with these telephone companies, when we're trying to locate people. We're getting that GPS for officers, latitude and longitude, off of their cell phone location. It's not something that's with the towers. Yep. So it's definitely more accurate.
And we had to reach out to an Air Force specialist back on that DSU case that came in about 36 or 48 hours later after it, that ended up triangulating and getting us down to at least a reasonable search area.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I mean, despite the circumstances, it was really impressive how they just used all that, leveraged the technology at that time in 2009 to be able to narrow down the sides of the tower it was hitting off of, and a lot of angles of math that,
stuff that's way over our head.
Yeah.
It was also, I mean, community involved too, just getting on and making that notification to everybody. If you notice anything, check your fields, check these areas, trying to get people to help us looking for it. And that was important because we have those public notification methods now.
Do we have any other super secret technology coming into the loop here on the horizon that we're looking at and we're talking about?
We were talking the other day, we just got done demoing it last week. But there's, were we talking about this, Tenille? The Priority 911, I think is what it's called. It's another company through RapidSOS, but it'll leverage the cell phone capabilities of a caller. So if they're on the scene of either a big fire or a big explosion or something like that, or they're lost like we had the other day.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. I remember, and you can almost live stream with them if you've got, if you're lost and you don't know where you're at, or you're stuck in a car and you've been abducted. I mean, you can connect with RapidSOS and it can live stream. We can black out the screen where it looks like we're not even on there with you, but we can see your location and the things that are around you to help find you in a manner where you can't speak for yourself.
Oh,
I mean that's
it's just it's initiated just through a text message, so you get a text message from our 911 center. So it's permission based, so we can't obviously just go in and
it's not like we're just spying and tracking people's phones. Like they would have to click that they're giving us permission to do this, but their screen will still remain and look like their phone is off, so to keep them safer and not alert their the bad guy that's with them, but it's going to give us that live location, what are their surroundings looking at. Because if you're, say you're somewhere and you get taken across state lines, you don't know landmarks, you don't know businesses, you don't know what's going on, but that dispatcher does. They live in that community, they're going to be able to see those things.
Well, actually, the problem with the case in point was the one that you were just working the other day here with the tree row. Do you want to talk about that one really briefly?
Yeah, I mean, we had an individual call in, and he was very frightened and thinking that people were after him, that they were going to harm him, that they had weapons. And he kept saying that he was in a corner. He gave a location, but it was very difficult to find him. And if he could have just had that on there, we could have seen exactly what he was seeing and tell the officers, hey, no, go to the left. This is where you're going. It would have been invaluable.
I heard that one over the radio as that thing developed and evolved, and the officers, they were pretty impressed with what we were able to do behind the console and how close you were able to draw them into.
Yeah, and I mean, you're watching the GPS and you're telling me like, no, you got to go back. You're right below them, exactly where, trying to get that location and get those officers in there, trying to help that guy out.
We got Mike and I had a note down here, and we're going to be remiss without bringing this up. I mean, there is you have some real personal things maybe that drew you into the profession here too, or earlier on, and the unfortunate loss of a brother.
Yeah.
And John. And we wanted to highlight a little bit and talk a little bit about him and who your brother was, and maybe the impacts on you related to that. And then we'll take it all the way up to the beginning with some stuff we heard at State of the City this last year with Mayor Decker.
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like it was exactly 1 year after my brother passed away that I was offered the position within the city of Dickinson. And it just felt like it was, I felt like I wanted to make a difference. Obviously, my brother, Specialist John Paul Fettig, he was killed in action in Iraq in July of 2003. And I think it was very obviously unexpected. It definitely was a tragic event that happened to our family. But you start to think about the things that you've done in your life and the things that you haven't done in your life. You think about, like, if I were to go, what legacy would I leave? What are people going to remember about me? And at that point, when this job, I looked at it and I just felt like this is something that I am capable of doing. I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can make a difference. Sure.
Yeah. With John being in your mind during this, and
I don't know that I would have had the courage to even try it. I was like my brother, who was self-proclaimed nerd.
Yeah.
It's not like he was the football guy or anything. He was just your average guy, liked to sit behind a computer and he decided to join the National Guard to go to college and get some help, and he ended up loving it. Stayed in it his whole life, and when the opportunity came and all the things that had happened in the world, he wanted to defend us. He wanted to fight for us, and he went over there. And I think that him being that type of person and having that courage to do that really affected me. I mean, obviously, there's some anxiety and things that happen because of those tragic events that you have to work through, but it just made me feel like I could make a difference.
How old was John when he passed?
He was 30.
Way too young.
Yeah.
Way too young. And
we're coming up on, 20 years?
Yeah.
20 years. He'll be gone next year.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Time passed, but
this job, the people that I work with, they were instrumental in always making sure that, very military minded, very supportive. A lot of people that are within our department have been so wonderful, and they always make sure and recognize and acknowledge, and they've really helped me heal through going through that. So, I mean, I just have to say that this department has been a lot of the reason how I was able to get back up again.
And I know just at the state of the city and continuing on what you just said, I saw your mom and dad, they were there, right?
Yeah. They got invited by Scott Decker, mayor. Yep. They didn't know what was going on, and they got a pretty big surprise.
And that was?
Yeah, it sounds like they're building a new armory for our National Guard here in Dickinson, and it looks like they're going to be naming it after my brother.
Yeah.
In
so cool.
memoriam, yeah.
What a legacy. I mean,
yes,
for
huge.
the family, and to be able to have that laminated forever.
Yes.
For your kids and for your family to be able to look at and reflect
Absolutely.
upon. So, just another a testament to the community, Mayor Decker, and whoever was behind some of the decision making, and on that end of it there, it's noticed and means a lot. Not just the Tenille, but her family up here, obviously the PD family that we were there and watching that. We're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this community is amazing when it comes to that. They just became a North Dakota Cares community for supporting veterans and military families. That was at a civil service committee meeting. Our community really steps up when there's a member in need, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
I just a huge shout out to Dickinson and the residents.
Yeah, we try to throw that in on every single episode, just when they hear this, and how appreciative we are.
Very much.
Absolutely.
So, what else? Do we have anything else there that we can you can highlight on your Anaheim trip down there to California?
My.
What were some of the big highlights to this APCO conference, which stands for?
APCO, Association of Public Safety Communications Officers.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
They had their national conference, which is something I've never been able to attend, and thankfully through multiple agencies I was able to. It's centered around the community and highlighting the difference that we make every day, making sure that our profession knows how important it is, and they offer multiple trainings, multiple guest speakers, motivational leadership. It was a 5-day long dispatcher fest, and it was so good for my soul. Everything about it was amazing.
Sure.
You walked into it and you felt wow. Like you take for granted sometimes that your job means something. You're like, you're going to work. It's your job. You hear that all the time. I'm just doing my job. But when you get in that room full of thousands of people that let you know how important you are, you can't help but leave that conference feeling like, I do a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came back with a little recharge.
Absolutely.
And some pep in
And the
step.
trainings that were involved, I mean, they offer up to 20-hour credits throughout this. So you can jam pack your schedule and really they offer anything. They have certain tracks, technology-based, supervisor-based, management-based, frontline telecommunicator, health and wellness for dispatchers. I mean, you name it, they have a training for it at this conference. So you can kind of pick and control what your schedule looks like and what's important to you, and go through your day. They also offered like big center tours. They had guest speakers, motivational leadership speakers, just letting us know about a team and the motivation, and just talk about the extreme ownership was something that one of the speakers talked about. Yeah, you just got to own what you have. I think there's it was an amazing, inspirational opportunity to meet and network. And not only were dispatchers there, but you've got the vendors, the technology, everything advanced. I mean, the exhibit floor was, I feel like, a mile wide of different, anywhere from the headphones that we use to the entire network that controls the system, like, and everything in between. It was impressive and so nice to be able to go through and look at those new technologies and things that are coming out and just get you more excited for the future.
I'd have been in nerd heaven.
It was amazing.
I hear it's Nashville next year.
Nashville is next year. Yeah, I might be volunteering at that one. Try to get there again. It was unbelievable, and it definitely reinvigorates your need to come back to your center and make a difference and help your other employees know that they're making a difference, and just team building and making sure that everyone feels that impact.
Yeah, the training lieutenant, he might have to find his way onto the
It was an unbelievable experience. I'm so grateful.
Did on the extreme ownership end of it, was that Jocko himself, or was it Echelon Front?
No, we had the Brent Gleason from what was SEAL Team 5.
Yeah.
I think he was on there, and the other guy that we had was Matt Eversman from Black Hawk Down. Was the other special guest speaker. So it was just teaching everybody to, obviously that leadership is, or your employees are a direct reflection of that leadership, and to own all those things involved in it. I can't get into it. I've learned so much. I mean, obviously, Mike's a huge fan. He comes in and he talks about it. My husband's a huge fan. He teaches me a lot about all those things, and super helpful in learning. But I mean, the points that they make and the lessons that they learn, they translate. It's not just military based. It translates into real life, and it really helps people become better leaders just by listening to their speakings.
Yeah, that's great. Did you have one thing? What was your favorite besides the networking, probably, and getting to hang out with some other dispatchers?
One thing that was my favorite, they had one of the nights they had what they called the APCO block party, and the way everything was set up, they had the Anaheim Convention Center, and you've got the Hilton and the Marriott, and in between that they have a boardwalk. And I say a boardwalk, but it's a huge expanse. It ends with a huge fountain at the end, and there's palm trees lining it. They string lights across the top. They brought in multiple food trucks from throughout the area, and a live band, and you just got to network and have fun and relax. And they really treated us to a great evening just to have a relaxing, good time. On the fun side of it, that was definitely a highlight for me. On the work side of it, I enjoyed the speakers. Some of them so much emotionally touched me. I mean, I don't know if you remember on the national news where that young man got stuck in his vehicle.
Oh, in the back seat.
In the back seat, right?
Yeah.
So his parents they made it their mission to honor their son, to educate 911 professionals on trying to be your best self with every call. And they were there, and that was one of the classes that I attend, and it touched me. Like, for them to take such a personal tragedy of losing their child and to turn it around. Some people could have been very negative or thinking like about if there was failures within our community that is the reason that their child isn't here. But they took it as, we're going to make sure that this never happens again. We're going to educate these professionals to know that they need to be their best self every single call, every single day that they go to work, and know that that's going to make a difference in somebody's life, saving that life. And that was one of the most inspirational speakers I've ever been to.
For some context, where was that at? Do you know offhand location on it by chance?
I honestly would have to look it up. I would.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's all right. Well, maybe knowing that you just because you set yourself up coming back reinvigorated here in the last 30 days, we want to tie off into some speed cuffing.
We can do
them.
that. Yeah.
Right. And so you heard the noise in the background there.
What does that mean?
Yeah. And we like to finish every episode, Tenille, with a little speed cuffing. And so Mikey, he will tee us off with some music. When the music starts, we do a little rapid fire question. And you just answer whatever comes to mind or what pops into your head just as fast as you can. And
I didn't know we were starting a game show.
Yeah, that's why we do that. That's why we do that. Hear those cuffs, and now you know it's game time. So okay. Do you
here we go. 30
set
seconds.
to go? 30 seconds.
I'm good.
Gotcha. Favorite vacation destination?
I haven't been a lot of places. Vegas.
Springer Spaniel or Cocker Spaniel?
Springer Spaniel.
Best musician of all time?
Ooh, Elvis.
911 was developed by what phone company?
Oh my goodness, AT&T?
Yeah, good call. Day shift or night shift?
Night shift.
The first 911 phone call was made in what state?
Ooh, I don't even know. New Hampshire?
What about what year?
New Jersey. I don't think New Hampshire. 1912.
Yeah, geez, this is going to blow you away. I wouldn't have guessed this one ever. Alabama in 68.
Oh,
68.
wow.
So, yeah.
Man.
You're
supposed to make me look good during these, and now I just completely ruined that.
No, I don't know.
You got AT&T though.
That's what I said.
I think it would have
Yeah,
been.
you get bonus points at makeup.
Right, all right.
So, you got any parting shots for us, Tenille, on their way out here as we get ready to wrap things up? We've been going on over an hour now, so time flies.
Wow. I had no idea. Honestly, I think one of our biggest things we're focusing right now is recruiting. I want to get better at that. I want to get these people interested. If there's anybody listening that is skeptical but think they might make a difference and just give it a shot. I mean, come in, interview, see what it looks like. We would love to have you, and don't be afraid. It can be intimidating, but it's life-changing.
Yeah, these positions hold so much weight in the process, and we don't talk about them enough and highlight them enough.
Yeah.
But today, hopefully, when you listeners hear this and anybody interested, you got to hear firsthand. I mean, they are in the thick of it. They are in the mud, with everybody else getting dirty.
I think you got to part us off with one last good dispatcher story, like a good humorous one. And we were talking about it the other day, like one of the more funnier calls that you've got.
So early in my career, we always tell the officers, we tell everyone, we're only as good as our caller. So I'm going to preempt this because I was back in the day a lot, and I think they still do. Lot 6, BN, kids hang out there. They
down on Villard.
Yep, they just hang out,
42.
and then above Blue 42, we had these apartments. People are living in there. We had an older gentleman call in, and he was very upset, screaming, just super upset, telling me that these kids were across the street, they were bothering him, and it's been an ongoing issue, and he was so mad, and he's like, they stole my sandwich. And I was like, I don't know if I heard that right. So I, ask again, and I'm trying, and he's just upset and yelling at me that they stole his sandwich. And so I dispatched it out. I gave it to the officers, theft of a sandwich. And they're not understanding what's going on, but they go down and they get down there, and then they politely informed me on the radio that it was a theft of a sand wedge. Golf clubs. But the way he was yelling, honestly, I mean, I wish I had the recording to this day, because I thought his sandwich was stolen. And I was like, what kind of sandwich is this that you were so upset about? But it was apparently a really good golf club.
And there's so many more of those.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's not all gloom and doom. There are good days. There are many, many good days.
Yeah, far more good than bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, well, that was pretty awesome. Tenille, really appreciate it.
Oh gosh, thank you for having me. Really, it means a lot.
Yeah, you're great at what you do. Extremely appreciated and valued. I know Lieutenant Hannell and the rest of us administration. Hats off to you back there.
Thank you.
And I know the officers and many in this building feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great team.
Yeah. So
we really do.
Big family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Lieutenant Hannell, before we do our outro here on this?
I think that about wraps it up. This is good.
Yeah, and I think episode 14, we have Detective Sergeant Lyons coming in, and we are going to go after criminal investigations. And so that could be a pretty special conversation with some things there related to criminal investigations. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, like the YouTube channel, the Facebook pages, subscribe to all of that stuff, share it with all your friends. Thanks a bunch, Tenille. It was awesome.
Catch you later.